Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video. See that? She pointed to the horizon, and Gaara watched the sun rise up in the sky. It's the sun, he said, curiosity filling his voice. It is, she said. You know why it's rising? Gonna sighed. Why would he care about such things? Although he would at least humor her. It was the least he could do. Why? He asked, and glared at her, giggling, but it was more of a pout. I don't know, she admitted, weakly deflating. Gaara continued glaring at her. You can go to the academy, we'll see how it goes. And Nada's face immediately brightened. I wonder how different it will be from Konoha. To his satisfaction, she wasn't completely disheartened, but Gaara can still see cracks in her visage, like the moon, ever distant, but pure and shining like starlight. We'll see, was all he said. Unada sighed slowly, watching the sunrise. She was enthralled by it, and Gaara could take a modicum of amusement to how she pointed the very colors in the sky. He especially liked her expression when he described it as blood dripping from the heavens. Only later did Hinata leave with a promise to talk to him later. Gaara was naturally bored again, so decided to wander around the village. Without the Sudibi's insistent whispering, he found himself noticing things he never had. Each of these villagers feared him, but he oddly felt at peace walking along the roads of Sonogakure. His feet led him to the Kazekage office. Strangely enough, he had been here before, when his father had summoned him. Craning his face up, he took in the figures of the previous Kazekages. Konoha was not the only village to honor their previous leaders in such a manner. But Sonogakure did not openly boast of them. They remained in spirit, watching over the council. What are you doing here, Gaara? Father. Gaara did not turn to face the fourth Kazekage. I was bored. The man ignored Gaara's statement, instead asking him a question. What do you think of them? The previous Kazekage. Rasa nods. Gaara snorts. I could care less about them. They are all dead now. A facsimile of a smile appeared on Rasa's face. The elder man didn't appear the least bit bothered about Gaara's statement. Gaara raised an eyebrow in confusion, sand rising slowly. You should not care about them, Rasa said finally, dismissing Gaara's question. They would not care about you, for you are a weapon, to be used in defense of Suna. Weapons should not be shown love. Gaara didn't bother responding. The chibi is not like the other tailed beasts. Its power is that of cursed seals, so it is near impossible to seal. Your seal itself is a self-renewing one, so we do not need to reseal the tailed beast when it escapes. I never was meant to have control, Gaara said. More of a statement of a question. You are a weapon. Rasa repeated, eyes distant. A tool to be used in defense of Sonogakure, in defense of your Kazekage. You. There and others in Suna who oppose the sealing, who wish to kill you. Some of them see potential in you. Others want you gone. Rasa's eyes flickered to the empty seats in the building, and back to the statues watching. Surely you know what the will of wind means. You must be strong first, Gaara says. My rule is not absolute, and you, Gaara, you were an experiment, Rasa drawled, his tone bored and empty of emotion. The council would have weighed my successes and pounced if I failed. Suna's failing, due in part to Gaara, no doubt. Gaara had watched the man closely during the dinner and come to a startling conclusion. The man cared for him in his own twisted manner. It is not failing. Suna is failing, Gaara insists, eyes turning to his father, who doesn't meet them. It was failing when you sealed the Ichibi into your own son. He doesn't mention how it was obvious Rasa's rule was already in question if he wanted more power near him, or how decrypt most of the hidden sand is. He had only noticed it himself when he started walking through the streets. You were supposed to help me, to make Suna great once more, just like the Sandemir had, Rasa muses, but you were a monster. Gedira would sneer, would laugh in the face of this man who he calls father. But he doesn't, because Hinata's words keep ringing in his head. He can be more— No. What? I am not a monster, Gaara says, and for once, he believes it, but he needs to prove it somehow, because a part of him still yearns for his father's approval. His brain searches, racking his mind for a solution, and to his surprise, he finds one. I will prove it, Gaara says, shocked by the conviction flowing into his voice. I will prove this village wrong. I will prove the world wrong. He looks straight in his father's eyes, and for once, his father meets them. His father's eyes are dark and dull. in contrast to the gold dust he uses. Gora wonders if his heart is made of the same color. I will become the god of Kazekage. Rasa doesn't reply, only straightening his back and looking back at the statues. Do not tell me that. Gora, tell the village. And with those words, he walks away. Facing his father's retreating back, Gaara frowns. To become Kazekage, he will need the support of the people, which extends to the council. To do that, he needs to become strong. Not just mindless strength, intelligent strength, like his father, and for that he needs training. It should be easy enough to find a Jonin willing to train him, and then he needs to protect the village. But most importantly, he must show he is in control of the Ichibi. Gritting his teeth, he thinks, how can he control a Biju? This, he thinks, is a question worth answering. Later, when he returned to his room, he muses over such a problem. If he is a tool to be used in defense of the Kazekage, then if he is the Kazekage, then he can protect himself. He nods at this warped logic and sits down, legs crossed. He knows little of previous Jinchuedi except that one was a monk who was able to maintain control over the Ichibi, so meditation is the obvious answer. His thoughts are empty. Gaara has had plenty of practice with keeping his mind clean of any extraneous thoughts. Aside from the Ichibi's constant whisperings, he waits for what seems like an eternity, mind focused on one thing, before it clicks. The world bends around him, the inky blackness of the back of his eyelids blooming with light as white streaks rush across him. He feels wind blowing on the nape of his neck, the sand's midnight chill creeping up his spine. His eyes are open, and they meet the dark embrace of sky and earth. He looks further and sees Shukaku, the raging spirit of the sand rising over the dunes, eyes fixated on Gaara. Those eyes were not the ones Gaara had known. They are surprisingly lucid, inquisitive even, and Gaara wonders how powerful the Sharingan is to cause such a change. His stomach shifts in slight apprehension, and he feels pity for the creature to be subjected to such a change. Shukaku, he greets. Gaara, the tailed beast, watches him from its perch, turning his head up to the night. There's no moon in the sky, Gaara realizes. I want to make a deal. Silence is his response. Shukaku studies him lazily, tail drawing circles in the sand. Gaara gulps, slowly, keeping his expression level. There was something almost comical about Shukaku's devious rants, his paradoxical insanity that allowed the beast to fall flat from the myth it was made out to be. But watching the cold intelligence within this creature's eyes, his lazy, controlled motions, the sudden juxtaposition reminds Gaara of why this being is a tailed beast. The Ichibi doesn't. Shouldn't need to scream for blood. It is a force of nature, a vengeful god that was once revered. It is not a madman, a story about a mischievous yokai. It is death incarnate. Shukaku, I cannot allow you to rampage across my mind. Laughter is what greets his ears, deep and rumbling like a hurricane. In a second, darkness covers him as Gaara barely dodges out of the way of Shukaku's fist. Do not think of making demands of me, boy. His voice was otherworldly, his might one that could shake the heavens. For once, Shukaku was not a crazy tanuki. He was the Ichibi, the tailed beast that could level mountains if he desired. The piercing calm in his voice, the chilling timbre of his phalanx, they all rocked Gaara to the core. At that moment, he realized the sheer distance between the two. They are not equals, far from it. He can preach about friendship, but the best he can hope for is a blessing. He had read stories about it before, of Kami bestowing gifts to heroes in epic quests. Thinking of these men, his own tale is trifling in comparison. But part of him refuses to let Shukaku order him in such a way, because Shukaku is his prisoner. He is Gaara of the Sand Waterfall, and he is strong. This is his mind. He is the son of the Yondaime Kazekage, and for once he feels proud of that fact. He is the son of Karura, not of this thing. And then the world shakes as golden particles rip out of the sand. Shukaku's eyes widen in shock as the silica in the ground rises to challenge Gaara, who remains unshaken, eyes filled with resolve.
I am the son of the Kazaki, he thunders, as the glimmering dust flutters into the air, dragging Shukaku's sand down, down, down.
This is his birthright, the symbol of the Kazekage, and his chakra feels alive, rejecting Shukaku's energies with vigorous enthusiasm. The fields sparkle as they dance through the air, the gold wrapping around the Ichibi, chaining it. The same man who has crushed you before. He spits, eyes calm and focused. I am Gaara of Sunagakure, not Gaara of the Ichibi. I serve my village, I defend it, not you. You have used me for the last time. Ichibi, his anguish, his hatred, his anger, he pours it into the metal, fluttering around him, and his mind responds. Within seconds, gold imprisons the Shukaku, who is muzzled and beaten into the ground. And above, the moon's celestial starlight shimmers over Gaara's form, triumphant, victorious. This cycle ends here, he says finally. It was not my choice to be your jailer, but it was your choice to provoke me in such a matter. Reflect on your choices, Shukaku, Gideon says. And when I return, I might see it in to allow you some modicum of freedom. Shukaku watches him, beady eyes awash with hatred, but there's something more there, some form of admiration, of respect. So it was true, huh? He remarks, almost dejected. Gar stares back at him, before quietly speaking. You are not a monster. You can be more. Shukaku doesn't respond. Hatred won't change anything. If you want freedom, prove that you are deserving of it. Like you can become Kazekage? Shukaku questions. Gaara closes his eyes. I will become the Kazekage. I will show that our birth is not what defines us, and that... His gaze pierced through Shukaku. This time, monsters aren't born. They are made. Huh! Shukaku looks to the ground. Bunpaku would have liked you. Bunpaku. He was my first jailer. The monk. Shukaku nods, or at least tries to. He said that there would be a day when another human would understand me, where human and tail beast would work together. I am not that person. Gaara replies flatly. Who knows, you might be someday. You're surprisingly lucid, Gaara comments. So are you? Shukaku retorts, lips pulling up into a beastly smile. At that end, you proved yourself to me. What? The Ichibi looks down at him, grin still present. Legacy haunts us all, kid. Gaara's confusion is evident when Shukaku finally closes his eyes. That Uchiha was right about you, right about a lot of stuff. He knew a lot too, and it gave me a new perspective. Of what? Of whom you can be, brat. Shukaku shook his head slowly. You'll see soon, brat, but I'll give you a hint. Where the wind once ran, a town lies in ruins, sealed within the sand. Weaned! Answer that riddle, and you'll be worthy to be my Jinchuriki. Very well, then. Gaara dipped his head in acknowledgement, and the desert receded within the night as Gaara's eyes opened back to reality once more. His gaze shifted to his hands as he suddenly wondered, could he use the magnet release? He had done it in his mindscape in a moment of desperation, but that was his ideal self, the person he wanted to be. In other words, he had imagined it, but he had promised to make his dream a reality, and the magnet release was the sign of the Kazekage. He pushed his chakra through his coils, recalling that sudden feeling. It flowed smoothly, and he began to feel something around him. He reached for that feeling, guiding it, and to his surprise, saw gold particles fluttering around him. He had done it. Gaara of the Sand Waterfall was what they called him. A self-loving beast who preyed on the children of the village. He would defy his karma, his fate. His shimmering dust whirled faster, until it fell out of his chakra's grasp, but that did not stop his smile. Rasa's hands remained perched on his desk as he listened tiredly to the counselor's yip and yap. They were dogs. No, vultures were a better term. Relics of a long-gone age. They clung to their seats with their creaky bones for as long as they could manage. His frown must have been permanently etched into his face after constantly speaking with them. Suna did not have clans. They instead had tribes, a remnant of the various nomads that had wandered the land of wind, fighting for clients among the wealthy. Not to mention the stigma associated with clans. Ever since the climatic civil war between Sheman and Redo, the Nidaime and Shodai Kazakage, the only reminder of that era was the hourglass adorned on each Sonagakure shinobi's headband. Not that he cared, the hourglass was merely a totem, a symbol of piety for the monks that once inhabited the desert. That order was long gone now, fading with the desert tides. He had time for the present, not the past. What purpose was there when hunger closed in, when the harsh rays of the sun burned into your skin? Lord Keiu Sakage. Ebizo began, and Rasa listened patiently. We meet today to discuss our conquest of River and the hopeful profits we have earned. The deal I have made with the Hokage is a joint occupation zone. Rasa said finally, we have received an increased amount of missions from the Daimyo of Fire in exchange and a share in the duties over our borders. What? Yura thundered. He was the head of a large merchant family and a retired jonin. His family's specialties were banking, primarily dealing with shinobi insurance and financial accounts. Opening up so much, you should have spoken with us first, Kazaka-J. Please. Rasa dismissed the man's complaints, leaving the hag fuming. You do need to make your distaste of me obvious. Yura, if there's one thing I do despise, it's people like you. And what would that mean? Yura seethed, rising to his feet. Rasa remained standing, his face emotionless. People who think war is nothing but a game, a set of numbers that go down and up. I have served Suna faithfully. I have sacrificed, and you have the audacity to order me in such a manner. It was the council's decision to make my son Jinchuriki. He closed his eyes, a smirk gracing his lips. It was I who dealt with the aftermath, while you hid in your gilded gardens, nursing your old bones. I who gave my wife, my son, for this village. Rasa sneered at the pathetic merchant, his gold dust bursting from the ground around the Kazakage. Sit down, Yura, Ebizo grumbled, turning to the Kazakage. My apologies, Lord Kazakage. Yura sat down, but his anger was palpable, clear as daylight on his face. Rasa ignored it, continuing. The Land of Fire has deferred missions to us, due to focusing on rebuilding and their conflict against Aiwa. Shizura spoke up finally. He was one of Rasa's ardent allies, in part due to the man's holdings in the gold trade. Lord Kizakage, this means that the Wind Daimyo might start listening to us. Ebizo nodded his head, while the rest of the council began to whisper. I have thus decided to deploy all Jinnen on C-rank missions. Sungakure must make the most of this opportunity. All leave is cancelled, except for medical emergencies. The council gaped in surprise. The 5th Hokage has already given Suna clearance to operate within the Land of Fire, and I have decided to take Gaara on as my apprentice. The boy has proven he has control over the Ichibi, as evidenced by his interactions with the Hyga girl. This means you can't. Rasa tuned the man's heckling out, curtly responding, this council is over. He left the room immediately afterwards. 2 days earlier, Riza walked through the desert, flanked by a single guard. His robes flew in the wind, the conical green hat shielding his face from the worst of the morning heat. Are you all right, Lord Kazakaji? Do not forget the deal you struck with me. Sasori. The man in question nodded, a gentle smile gracing his face. He wore the flak jacket of Suna, his puppet stored in scrolls on his belt. Have you told Granny yet? You are on a long-term infiltration mission within Konoha. Give the council some information about Danzo's organization, and they will welcome you with open arms. Sasori laughed haughtily. You haven't changed a bit, Rasa. Always work with you. Rasa did not respond, instead walking forward. So, this brat of yours, Kankuro, right? He asked airily, waving his hand back and forth. He wants to become a puppeteer. I doubt his talent measures up to mine. Riza glared at Sasori, who laughed at him. Please, Riza, you and I were on the same Jinnen team. What would the Sandaime think? You were the man who killed him. You approve, don't you? If you intend to kill me, Sasori, I won't go down without a fight. Sasori smirked. Our teacher was a fool. I know you despised him. Ref frowned. He was cruel. It was expected of his post. As Kazakage, one cannot show favoritism, even to one's kin. Like you are to Karura's children. Sasori questioned, sudden anger flaring into his tone. What is your obsession with her? Rasa asked coldly, back facing Sasori. In a way, she was humanity. Sasori remarked, eyes lost in remembrance. She was innocent, unstained, filled with heart even when the odds were against her. What do you know of humanity? The words pierced through Sasori. I know what it means to be inhuman, he finally said. His tongue was dry in his mouth. You know, I thought that humans themselves were imperfect. They are such weak creatures. They need to eat, to piss, to sleep. They need to love, they need to love, they need emotion. Are you not speaking of a machine then? Rasa retorted sharply. Or is that what you see in your puppets? Sasori closed his eyes slowly. Isn't that what you want to be, Rasa? He relished the look of surprise on Rasa's face. To just forget your wife's death, to chain yourself to that desk, and keep working until you die. To never feel again, to never live a little... No. Sasori cut him off. Karura would have expected more from you. She would have been disgusted in you, Sasori. It was not me. She chose to marry. A silence engulfed the two. Puppets are the perfect tool, then, by that logic. Rasa mused. No emotions, simple killing instruments. They have no soul, no life. Sasori smiled sardonically. The perfect shinobi. You are wrong, Rasa finally said. Really? Sasori raised an eyebrow in amusement. The creator places life into every one of their puppets, like a mother to a son. It is akin to forging a sword, for you must trust in it every time you raise its blade. No wonder you only use that dust. Rasa bristled at the unspoken accusation. They put love in it, love so that it endures and moves on. The two continued walking. They both knew of the hypocrisy in their lives. So you've changed, then, Rasa commented. Never once did I know you to love Karura. Never did you care for her. It seems a little odd, he mused, eyes filled with suspicion. I'm aware of that, Sasori said, but didn't you just say love is important?
Even if it is fake?
My heart does not lie. Sasori placed a hand over his chest, smiling slowly. And if it means keeping my humanity, I'll gladly keep it. Rasa snorts. You are too easily manipulated. Was it not this love that returned me to the sand? Risa didn't respond. Your grandmother will be angry with me. Let her be. Wasn't she the one who sealed the Ichibi into your son? You know quite a lot, Sasori. I like to keep close tabs on home. You seem to like talking too. I'm a changed man. Sasori laughed at his own joke, and Rasa shook his head. You are very good at lying, Rasa mused. I am unsure if you are Danzo's man or he is yours. Konoha and Suna are allies, are they not? Rasa finally laughed. It appears you have studied human interaction well enough to joke then. Did you just laugh? Sasori questioned, amusement dancing in his eyes. And here I thought you were married to that hat. The elders would not like the news that you killed the third. Please. Sasori was all too enthused by a good challenge. These are the same people who would gladly overthrow you, and then reminiscence on how great you are. So, that is why you left. My only desire was to make art. A smirk forms on the Kazekage's face. So even you are capable of love. If you were, I think I would be able to as well. You are different. Rasa almost wants to laugh at the sheer insanity of it. He's talking to Sasori, the same man who killed their teacher, the third Kazekage. He had always assumed his former teammate to be some spirit disguising itself as a human. Sasori was simply inhuman in his life. He was born different. You were not the same as you were born. Sasori's eyes widened, but Rasa plowed on. He had always been quiet but observant. You never enjoyed anything, and would try so hard to fit in, to craft that perfect mask, to perfectly represent what a child was, then a shinobi. You tried so hard till you eventually gave up, succumbing to your despair. Rasa does not mention his own suspicions that Sasori turned himself into a puppet, trying to match his own heart with his body, because Sasori had never understood himself, had never felt joy. When he had said puppets had no love in them, it showed. So how could he tell illusion from reality? If the only thing that made him feel joy was Karura, then his loyalty was undoubtable. We're here. His golden eye had already picked up the approaching Hokage. Sasori nodded, moving back. The Kage were to meet alone as a sign of trust. The two men approached each other, and Rasa held out a hand in greeting. It was met by a salute from the Hokage. Lord Kazekage, Kakashi Hatake, cheerily greeted, shaking Rasa's outstretched hand. Lord Hokage, Rasa responded gruffly. And thus the meeting to determine the future of the Land of Rivers was convened. Rasa pushed the reports off his desk and rose out of his chair. His work was finally done for the day, or at least he hoped it was. The duties of a Kage never ended, even when the robes went into the closet and the hat was hung up. At the very least, he could have dinner with his children today. He shuddered slightly, recalling the hellish events of the day before. An angry Chiyo was not something he ever wanted, especially when it came to her precious grandson. He couldn't even believe that the old hag had believed the obvious lie. But that was love, wasn't it? In the back of his head, he could almost hear Karura's gentle voice. She had told him that she wanted to see her children grow, to see them live and love. That he had broken her heart, he didn't deserve her love, but his children. They had always said a mother's love was unconditional. His hand reached out for the sole picture frame on his desk. He wiped the dust off the frame, peering more closely at his wife. It was taken on the day of their wedding, before Rasa was the Kazakage. His own face was so young, free of wrinkles, brought on by years of stress and tiresome duty. The future had seemed so bright then. Anything was possible with Karura by his side. How he wished it could have stayed that way. The vigor of youth unstained by the cynicism of adulthood. He placed the picture back on his desk, walking to the door. His feet were soundless against the tiled stairs, robes unvarnished as he navigated through the halls of the Kazakage estate. He quietly formed a single-hand seal, shaping an eye out of the gold dust he always kept nearby. Closing his right eye, his vision shifted. This was one of the many techniques he had created using the Sande maze notes and his own knowledge of magnet release. It was not complete sight, but rather a set of images using subtle magnetic fields to gauge his surroundings and then transmit them to him, to his brain. He always kept a large supply of gold dust within seals on the inside of his robes, an arsenal to use in case of an emergency. The scene playing out before him was not something he expected. Gaara was sitting next to Temari and Kankuro, and the three were playing. No, it wasn't exactly that. Gaara was moving his sand around, but it wasn't sand.
It was gold dust.
Rissa's jaw dropped open in surprise. Of all his children, it was Gaara who inherited his magnet release. A smile started to creep up his face. This was perfect. Maybe even more so, because if Gaara learned how to use that dust, he would be able to restrain Shukaku by himself. His sight returned to normal, his hands falling back to his sides. He felt a draft of the cold evening air billow through his robes, and sighed as he ran a hand through his auburn locks. His mind was whirling, hundreds of schemes and plans taking shape as he saw the future. He smirked slowly before looking back at the door. He could hear excited laughter, and his heart fluttered for just a second, torn between two choices. Through his right eye, the sound of family, and in his other, the future of Suna beckoned, trumpets calling. His face twisted into a scowl as he turned away from his children and exited as quietly as he came. Tomorrow, he thought, tomorrow I'll talk to them. He was gone in a quiet whirlwind of gold. Gaara groaned as Rasa threw him back, his father's scowl permanently fixed up in his face. Up, Rosa commanded, raising his right hand as the gold whipped around back at him. Gaara barely dodged out of the way, hugging his limbs close to his small body. He is only 6, but Rasa has been insistent, but it's something because that meant that he is one step closer to his dream. He had forced his way into the archives, threatening the shinobi present with his sand and promises of unleashing the Shukaku. It worked like a charm. He rose slowly, his gold flying upwards, weakly defending against rises, growing smaller with each clash. Rissa finally relented, letting Gaara collapse into the sand. That's enough. At least you know how to use it now. The man studied him, tired eyes taken in his thin frame. From now on, Gaara, I expect you to follow the diet I assign. You cannot allow your body to remain that weak. Gaara nodded feebly. Complete the exercises I have shown you. Raza commanded, voice hard and solid. I will test you once a week. Father Gaara began, wanting to remind him of that, but he's cut off. I noticed your entry into the archive, Gaara. A flare of killing intent rushes off the Kazakage. As his eyes narrow, do not take me for a fool. The Uchiha promised to work with me if I solved a riddle. Gaara explains, hoping his father will help. Rasa scoffed, brushing the question aside. So, you have told me the Uchiha also despises its host. No, its jailer. Why would it work for you? Gaara takes a chance, rising to his feet. It will work, father. I know it. Fine then. Rasa smiled sardonically, a smirk plastered on his tanned face. See where this takes you. You'll soon learn not to trust monsters so easily. Thank you, father. Raza nodded and moved to leave before Gaara stopped him. Temari and Kankuro wanted to know if you would eat dinner with us today. I will try, son. The Kazekage said, disappearing in a whirl of dust. It's become more obvious to Gaara now that his father is two, the Kazekage and Rasa. The Kazakadi as cold, hard-hearted, and distant. He bears the name Rasa of the Gold Sands, but Rasa is nothing but a burden to the man. Rasa is not much better, but sometimes Gaara believes he can see an ember of love in those dull black eyes, a flash of something beyond his hat and robes and duty. The more he sees, the more Gaara believes being a Kage is a prison. It is a gilded cage, of course. One fashioned with ivory and polished marble, varnished with gold, brilliant, shining, senseless gold. So luminescent, it blinds its bearer to its true nature. The more he thinks about it, the more he realizes how alone his father is. He doesn't have any friends and spends his days between the office and home. Even when he is home, he is always distant, so drawn back to his cage, to the hat lying in his office, of dreams of grandeur pushed in front of his nose, that he can never see what is in front of him. To be a Kazekage is to be inhuman. Gaara realizes there can be no human under the robes, only a self so warped by the village he is unrecognizable. This is the will of the wind, the Kaze no Ishi, an ideology unchanged from the time of the Sendaime who rebuilt Samgakure after his predecessors brought it to the ground. For all Gaara cares about his father, what has the man actually accomplished? In Gaara's eyes, the third and fourth are the same, near-perfect copies of each other. When a fifth will take office, they will speak of the fourth with the same reverence, and the new Kazekage will continue on, forever a slave drowning in the sand. But Gaara can change this, because he has realized something. Where the wind once ran, a town lies in ruins, sealed within the sand. Winged is Kaze, and the Kaze River had been the site of the final battle in Suna's civil war. The books say this, although much of the record regarding that time had been lost in the bloodshed, there is something there. Gaara is sure of it, because the Kaze is the birthplace of Sunagakure, and perhaps there he'll be able to find the true meaning of what being the Kazekage means. Because a leader was not inhuman. A leader was someone who inspired their people to seize their dreams. A leader would not let the elders drag him down, but rather reach for the sky, embracing the heavens and the ingenuity of man, pursuit filled with the blazing might of youth. At least Hinata had been helpful in telling him about the Hokage, and the more he learned of the world, the more he yearned to reach that lofty goal he had set, because his father did not understand that there was value in everything. He was so drenched in the present of finances and survival that he had never turned his eyes to the brilliant future, waiting for his outstretched hands. There is a puzzle here, some reason why Suna has remained stagnant when it should grow like the wind that birthed it. Superstition has a deep history within Sunagakure. A desert naturally lends some credibility to such beliefs, spurred on by the wistful tongues of grandmothers and travelers alike. Not that these beliefs are similar. For any event, you will find many different interpretations and fortunes to be drawn. 101 remedies for a simple issue. If you go down Suna's main lane at midnight, one might be able to see some of these superstitions. All matters of fragrances guard the streets. Jasmine, desert lily, some even use camel dung. Over time, these traditions wax and wane, but it's impossible not to deny that they have become a key part of Suna. The only one Rasa ever cared about was the Kazekage's curse. Every leader of the Sand had been assassinated, but that was just the life of a shinobi. Sasori's first reaction is simple. He detests the sudden lack of his independence, the sole reason he had left the Sand in the first place. Tio's guilt and the shroud of ennui that hangs over his childhood home doesn't make it any easier. It's hard enough for him to explain where he was or what he was doing, so he doesn't. He sits in his room, the room which he stayed in all his life while he served Sunagakure. It hasn't changed in the 10 years since he left. Every single photo, tool, and object perfectly preserved. A dollhouse he huffs for Chiyo to gawk at it and dream of. She's far too sentimental. Come eat Sasori. He hears her voice, old and scratching, but filled with so much expression. The food is still hot. When he sits down in front of Chiyo Abizo to her right, he finds himself awfully nostalgic. His hands want wood to carve, want to feel soft varnish, but at the same time, he wants to be here, in this moment. Sasori, she calls, tapping a spoon on the table, lip wobbling and disapproval shining in her eyes. Chiyo had always been strict with food, never wishing it to go to waste, filled with hundreds of stories of scarcity and whatnot. To a child, they were annoying. Even now, they still are. After all this time, nothing has changed. He pokes at his porridge with his spoon and watches Chiyo from the corner of his eye. Ebizo's face is watching hers as well, fingers shaking. He places a spoonful in his mouth and relishes the flavor. Slightly chewy, but tough as well. "It's good, Granny Chiyo," he says in that lazy manner of his. "I have missed it." She nods, staring back at him. She hasn't touched her own bowl. "This mission of yours," Chiyo says, "I have a mind to teach that Rissa brat some manners. He didn't even think of letting you tell us." Her expression is both angry and concerned. It's a face only grandmothers can make. Sasori leans forward, face neutral. It was meant to be a deception. The Kazekage answers to the council. Ebizo replies, giving a pointed glare at Sasori. "To make such a unilateral decision, to mark you missing Nin, it's..." Sasori wants to laugh at them. They hadn't even considered the fact that he was actually a missing Nin, too blinded by their own affection. He picks up his spoon, giving the two elders a warm smile. To be a shinobi is to sacrifice. He states in a monotone, "My duty is to my Kazekage." Chiyo watches him slowly. "I believe I was quite successful as well, considering recent events." Thinking of it now, he must have broken her heart. His return would have turned her world upside down and rekindled any hope of living the old puppeteer had. He crushes the slight anger towards her that suddenly flares up. "So sorry," Chiyo asked him, leaning in. "Are you sure this isn't about something else?" He laughed haughty, shifting his body forward just a little while relaxing his posture. His eyes are sharp and focused, but he lets a little more emotion enter his tone. To Chiyo, he looks akin to a predator waiting to pounce. The tension hangs in the air. "I can trust Rasa," he replies curtly, lips curving upwards. "We are of one mind when it concerns Sunagakure." "And what of yourself, boy?" Chiyo cuts in. "I do not want you to live like Rasa." "Is there something wrong with him?" he asked, genuinely curious. It must have shown, judging by the sudden glint in his grandmother's eyes. "He is too obsessed with his title, that boy," she remarked, pushing her bowl to the side. A moment of hesitation. It made Sasori toy with the idea of leaving, if just for a second. "I see," he concedes, rising as well. "I shall try to balance my affairs then, grandmother." She was completely unimpressed, as expected. "You aren't going on another mission, Sasori. Not after what you've done to your poor grandmother." She wagged her finger at him. "Consider yourself lucky." He rolls his eyes. "Of course, Granny. But I promised Rasa I'd meet him." Chiyo glares at him. "Go on then, but come back quickly. I want you in this house by nightfall." Yes. Nothing has changed, hasn't it? He almost wants to scream. Rozo's enigmatic summons lingered in Sasori's mind, a cryptic puzzle demanding unraveling. His former comrade's words hinted at a meeting, but the man hadn't told him where. Sasori reached out with his chakra and felt the gentle rumbling of Rozo's in the graveyard of all places. Still, he had a duty to uphold. Under the moonlit sky, the graveyard stood as a testament to the passage of time. Sasori's steps resonated with a solemn rhythm as he traversed the dusty plot of land, the final resting place for those who had served Sunagakure. As Sasori walked among the graves, a cascade of sensations enveloped him. His heart pulsated within his chest, a steady drumbeat affirming his existence. Inhaling the crisp air, he felt the life-affirming surge of breath in his lungs. He reveled in the authenticity of being alive, the coursing blood, the touch of wind against his skin, and the subtle grains of sand beneath his worn sandals. Questions plagued Sasori's thoughts. What was he now, stripped of the puppet's gears and grease? A mirthless laugh threatened to escape, a sudden fracture in the facade of his mind. The memories of his artificial existence clashed with the visceral reality of his humanity. He was human, made of flesh and blood, not an imitation of life, wood and oil, crafted in imitation of the greatest art. He had sought immortality in body, but never in self. The graveyard, a tableau of memories, sat on the eastern fringe of the village. The cold, characteristic of the Land of Wind's wintry nights, gnawed at Sasori's senses. Despite the inner turmoil, Sasori found a peculiar contentment in achieving the once thought impossible. He had surpassed his own humanity, but had forgotten the meaning of who Sasori was. His legacy, an indelible mark on history, seemed to persist, immune to the eroding hands of time. Yet, beneath the surface, the hollow in his heart lingered, a reminder of the puppeteer's greatest triumph but worst failure.
It's a reminder
A warning. His feet find themselves moving towards a place he shouldn't know. It's easy to feel the quiet rumbling of Rasa's chakra, barely constrained but oddly muted. His back is what he sees first. A simple black jacket with mesh armor underneath. Simple is the word he defines Rasa as. Plain as the desert sands that had encased him. Even on the duties of the Kazekage, the man rarely wore the green-white robes, preferring a simple auburn cloak and tan scarf. I had a hard time spotting you, Sasori quipped. How will people know they're Kage? Rasa turned to face Sasori. Bags clung to the edges of his tired eyes, but the sharpness within them endured, a testament to the burdens carried by the Yondaime Kazekage. They locked eyes for a moment, a silent exchange pregnant with unspoken history. Sasori, breaking the gaze, shifted his attention to their surroundings. This is the resting place of the Kazekage, Rasa said. It is an honor to let me stand in their presence, Sasori replied, understanding the veiled barb in Rasa's words. Sonogakure does not bury their people. That lies in friends and family. The village merely gives them a spot to do so. Sasori does not know what happens to those who have none left. Rasa, with a solemn grace, leaned down, hands brushing the ground. A pulse of chakra spread from his fingertips as the very earth rumbled, a hidden passageway opening up between the dusty soil. We go down, Rasa declared, and Sasori, a skeptic by nature, rolled his eyes but followed. The sand yielded to hard rock, adorned with engravings that spoke of a forgotten city. Those engravings, Sasori gestured to the walls. What do they mean? Rasa didn't respond. As they descended deeper into the crypt, a palpable chill crept up Sasori's spine. The air was thick with malaise. A crypt, Sasori muttered, recognizing the weight of the surroundings. The staircase opens to a large rectangular room made of sandstone, and Sasori cranes his eyes up to gaze up to his forefathers. Two statues stand in front of the back wall on either side of an imposing door. This is the resting place of my family, Rasa revealed, weariness etched in his eyes. Here lies the house of Rito, honored stewards of Sonogakure. Sasori's eyes ascended to gaze upon the formidable figures of the first Kazekage, Rito, and the third Kazekage, Shen. Rasa's voice, dry and laden with an inconceivable weight, echoed through the room. Behold, Rasa declared, the great necropolis of Sonogakure. The room's echoes intertwined with Sasori's thoughts as he scanned the statues. The third Kazekage's unfeeling eyes seemed to watch him, casting a cold gaze upon intruders in the city of the dead. Every person who died for Sonogakure, their graves, Sasori questioned. All roads lead here. Rasa, arms crossed, admitted. Sasori's eyes flicker back to the third, laden with doubt. He finds himself tensing and sets his mouth into a firm line. He can almost feel their stares watching him, accusing, questioning, filled with sordid rage. Why? They are not alive. They are all dead, and dead men tell no tales. Come, Rasa says, again turning down the left corridor. Sasori has to squint in order to make out the man.
There are many things that appear in his mind in this place. He sees himself in the reliefs on the wall, a mere babe swaddled by his mother. Then he is climbing, walking, running across a battlefield, eyes empty and void.
The room they are in is tiny. It isn't grand as Sasori expected, but it's still filled with a great sense of solemnity. Once again, Sasori's hands brush gently over his scrolls. It would be so easy now to move just an inch and kill his teammate. It wouldn't be the first, he realizes morbidly. But he can't bring himself to do it, not when he sees Karura, face adorned with a black veil, watching him from the shadows. Her eyes, shrouded in silk, convey a grief as vast as the boundless sea. His gaze is drawn to her mouth, a thin line tightly pressed together, a silent testament to the immeasurable sorrow etched upon her spectral visage. She says nothing. The dead can say nothing, do nothing, but watch their world keep marching on. She is a mute angel, a figure hovering over Rasa's shoulder, every movement bellies an ethereal grace, and when he meets her eyes, he drinks in her form, intoxicated by it. He's in love, he realizes. He's in denial. And Lord Almighty, it hurts. Rasa stops, turning to face Sasori. The two men find themselves isolated within the confines of a small room, its walls adorned with opulent gold and lapis blue. The walls are closing in around him. His chest pulsates, a palpable sensation that adds to the tumultuous symphony of emotions echoing within the confines of this gilded chamber. A drop slides down his brow as he locks eyes with the Yondaime Kazakage. The elder man inclines his head towards the center of the room, and Sasori follows suit. A golden sarcophagus meets his gaze. It's beautiful, made from some type of wood, sandalwood, his mind supplies, and covered with a layer of gold. Why would Rasa want to show him this unless... Karura, he realizes, hand-grabbing the sarcophagus. Rasa observes him like a hawk, eyes sharp and curious. Only then does Sasori take note of where he is and what he's doing. I didn't expect this, Rasa admits, a cruel glint in his eyes. This is how much you love her, after all these years. I do, he replies. There's no point in hiding the truth now. She will never love you, I fear. Rasa laughs. I know. Sasori says, irritation rising. Staring at Rasa, he feels a sudden anger throbbing in his heart. Who is this man to lecture him? Sasori rises, brushing the dust off his vest. But what about you, Rasa? Did you ever love her? Did you manipulate her like everything else? He accuses, all for the good of the village, wasn't it? Perhaps there's a flicker of sorrow in his eyes, or a subtle quiver in his breath, but the overall demeanor is one of a man grappling with the consequences of his actions. Rasa's countenance bears the unmistakable burden of guilt, etched across his features like a haunting shadow. Sasori falters slightly. A heavy sigh escapes Rasa's lips, laden with the weight of profound grief. The sound reverberates in the air. In the next instant, Sasori is slammed against the wall, gold dust wrapping around his body. A cry of protest escapes his protest, but it's too little, too late. He can't reach his scrolls, not with the magnet release imprisoning him. He should have known better, not believed so stupidly in a cause. Rasa pauses for another second, just watching. I trust you will understand, Sasori, he said lightly. This is nothing but my duty. I warned you many times, in fact. Rasa smiled cruelly. Did you actually think I would let you enter this crypt? This place was warded, Sasori mutters through clenched teeth. To Rasa, it looks more like a muzzled dog trying to bark. Regardless of what you believe, you are still a missing name. You killed my ninja, loyal shinobi who pledged their loyalty to myself, Rasa explained. He shook his head sadly, like he actually cared. So, Sasori, tell me why I should spare you. Sasori doesn't know what to say, because he had expected to be just forgiven. How pathetic. But at the same time, he feels nothing but resentment for the man standing in front of him. In another world, that could be him. He could have a family. And Karura's hand, even if it was fake, even if it was all a lie, what other purpose did he have to live? Is it because of her, he echoes, voice quiet and mocking. Risa's gaze fixates on Sasori, his eyes devoid of any discernible emotion. In the darkness of Karura's grave, he looks more like his uncle than Sasori would have liked, because Sasori thought Rasa was better. Better than him. Better than their sensei, the Sandaime Kazakage. Sasori discerns in Risa's stoic countenance the same disregard for anything beyond the scope of the village's needs. The very traits that he despises and resents in his uncle are now, unsettlingly, reflected in the face of a man who was supposed to be better. In the blink of an eye, the air crackles with tension as Sasori is forcefully slammed against the unforgiving wall. The impact is jarring, his cheek grinding against the rough surface, a harsh reminder of the brutality of the moment. The metallic taste of fear and blood pervades the air as the gold blade meets Sasori's flesh. A chilling hush falls over the scene as time seems to momentarily freeze. Sasori, pinned against the wall, witnesses the cold, unyielding reality of the blade's descent. The sharp edge pierces the skin, a crimson blossom staining the floor beneath. Rasa's hand remains firmly around Sasori's neck, but Sasori doesn't have the heart to fight back. Do you know what I sacrificed? The mask of composure, the stern countenance befitting the Yondaime Kazekage, shatters in an instant. In its place emerges a raw, unfiltered expression of a man who has weathered the storms of life, now laid bare. His eyes dilate as he glares at Sasori. Karura, she gave her life for Sunagakure. She entrusted me with its future. Stop. Rasa blinked in surprise, momentarily caught off guard by the interruption. Sasori laughs at him. Stop making excuses, Rasa. Excuses? What do you have? No, what have you achieved? Sasori questions. Hey, I am the Yondaime. Don't tell me that. Yondaime, Gadaime, Rokudaime. Nobody cares. Sasori wrings his fingers, testing his bindings. You haven't achieved anything. A retort pierces through Rasa's self-assured demeanor, and a flicker of fury ignites in his eyes. You're all alone. You have no friends, and your children, well, he smiled sorrowfully. I wonder if they would care about your death, except about the succession to the Kage position. Now. Rasa hesitates for just a second before retorting. The golden dust tightens around Sasori, squeezing off the air in his lungs. What about you, Sasori? Remembered as nothing but a missing nin, disgrace to both family and Sunagakure. Your parents gave their life for our village, but you squandered their sacrifice. Now it's Sasori who's at a loss for words. The two consider each other, former teammates, then enemies who traveled the road of life. But they both ended in the same place. In another world, Rasa would be remembered as the father of the Godime Kazekage. He did not accomplish anything, but drove his son to madness. Sasori was right. In another world, Sasori would be remembered as the infamous missing nin who surpassed mankind. A genius. They would call him, but he was forever alone, his legacy small and insignificant. Rasa was right. Rosa exhales slowly, before waving his hand, freeing Sasori. Sasori rises to his feet slowly, surprised by Rosa's sudden shift in demeanor. There's still tension in the air, such as when Sasori leaps to his feet as Rosa raises his hand. Except it's not a threat, it's an open hand. Sasori takes it, and Rasa helps him up to his feet. They stand quietly in the awkward silence that follows. Rasa is the first to speak up. Swear your loyalty to Sunagakure, and I will allow you to return. Sasori meets his gaze. Sasori, swear my loyalty to Sunagakure. And I, Rasa Yondaime Keizakage, affirm your loyalty. He holds out a headband to Sasori, who takes it slowly. As a symbol of your allegiance, everything seems to come back here. Sasori offers, eyes flickering to Karura's coffin. She has nothing to offer you. She gave my heart a rest, and maybe that's all I need. Sasori chuckles. Women, don't they have a way of changing us? Rasa nods slowly. What was it? I never understood again. The Sandaime Kazekage, when I killed him, I wanted to prove myself. It was always about myself. I could never move on, not till Karura. Rasa smiles wistful, but oddly genuine. The third, he saw too much of his brother in me. He never saw me as Rasa, but as the Yandame Kazekage. Sasori is reminded of Chiyo. I always resented you. You always seemed content, like you had something to guide you. I wanted that passion. That passion has long escaped me. As for the Sandaime, Reza closes his eyes and the image of Gaara flashes in his eyes. He never saw me as Rasa, but the Yondaime Kazekage. I resented him. I forgive you. Sasori blinks in surprise. Rasa doesn't elaborate, but it's enough. Gaara's meditation is abruptly disturbed as the door to his room swings open. He turns his head, anticipating the arrival of an ANVU operative or one of the estate's staff. However, his expectations are shattered as he is taken aback to find his father standing before him. The man looks like he hasn't slept in several days, and Gaara quickly greets him. Father. Gaara, he said quietly, I got you a gift. Gaara's eyes widened. For your birthday. Rasa winces slightly, and Gaara remembers that his mother died on the day. Thank you. Gaara takes the wrapped package and gently opens it. Inside is a stuffed animal, a small wolf. Gaara stares at it, blinking slowly. He isn't dreaming. The wolf gazes back at him, beady eyes watching, fluffy hair soft to the touch. His father gave him a gift. His father acknowledged him. Tears start to drip from his eyes as he remembers Yashimaru. Yashimaru, who had always loved him. Yashimaru, who he had killed. Staring at the wolf in his hands, he cradles it to his chest. Unbeholden, he raises his small arms and wraps them around his father. Rasa hesitates momentarily, hands suspended in the air, before gently placing one on his son's back. Rasa whispers slowly at first, voice scratchy as if he hasn't spoken for centuries. It's okay, Gaara. It's okay, son. Son. Gaara had craved to hear those words his entire life, and hearing them now fills his heart with an indescribable warmth. Somehow he senses the authenticity in them. The sobs that shook his frame gradually soften, and Gaara's eyes quiver as he breathes in his father's embrace for the first time. The two separate, slowly, with Gaara keeping the wolf close to his chest. What do you want to name it? Raza asked awkwardly, breaking the silence that had set in the room, pointing at the wolf. Gaara stared at the wolf. As he racked his brain for names, only one came to mind. Yashimaru, he said, weakly. I want to name him Yashimaru. Rasa winces slowly at that. It's a good name. Gaara pets the wolf. No, Yashimaru. Slowly. Thanks to him, for the first time, I received medicine from my father. Gaara. Rasa's voice breaks as he looks at his hands. Regret stained his face and shined through his eyes. I'm sorry. Instead of responding, Gaara placed Yashimaru on the bed between the two of them. He didn't want to talk about the past now, not when. Do you think Mother would have liked him? Gaara asks cheekily as Yashimaru crawls across the bed. Reza stills for just a second, lost in his memories of the past, before answering. He smiles slowly, watching his son, his and Karura's son. I think she would have. The corners of his eyes crinkle gently. I think she would have liked him very much. Chiyo stares at Sasori, who has recently begun carving wooden figures. Why? She asks, staring at the boy for an explanation, although deep down she already knows why. It makes me happy, Granny, he retorted haughtily, dismissing her. Let me see. Now, she wheedles to Sasori's laughter. Maybe later. Only when he's asleep does she look at them. The wooden ensemble captures Sasori's Jinin team, an unexpected subject. The wood is varnished delicately, each figure meticulously rendered, every crease and line displayed with care. The craftsmanship is remarkable, filled with an unmatchable passion. Rasa, on one side, his face stern and composed, the wood mirroring the strength of the Yondaime Kazekage. The details in his attire and the intensity etched on his wooden features showcase Sasori's keen eye for precision. Sasori, on the other side, depicted with a grumpy and tired expression, the wood conveying the weariness of a young ninja burdened by the weight of his experiences. Every carve and groove tells a story of battles fought and challenges overcome. And in the center, Karura, positioned with grace and radiating happiness and cheerfulness, the fine detailing in her wooden form reflecting the joy she brought to Sasori's life. Suddenly, Chiyo understands what changed. The realization dawns upon her like the first light of dawn, casting a soft glow of understanding. You naughty boy, she mutters weakly, her voice carrying a mixture of surprise and affection, as she gently pulls the blanket over her grandson. Unbeknownst to her, Sasori had seen everything, his keen eyes catching the subtle shift in Chiyo's perception. A smile graces his face, not the mischievous grin of a boy, but the serene smile of a man who had found peace with himself. It lingers there, before he falls asleep peacefully for the first time in years. With old age comes a new perspective. Regardless, considering the nature of the writings I seek to present, it will naturally come to question my vernacular and the subsequent attitude of them. Every writer comes to this question, but I have made great strides to authentically communicate my life, especially my youth, which to this day remains a subject to intense scrutiny and curiosity from the academia. So thus, while I myself am impartial to manners of prologues, I shall nevertheless allow you, my dear reader, to enjoy this tale without having to suffer from my unnecessary thoughts. Sincerely, Naruto Uzumaki. Legacy. In order to begin, I must start with my youth, or what was left of it, when I reached 6 years of age. I was not a boy of much worth, and never would I hope to presume I had any more greatness than which I could build with my own 2 hands. Come on, I protested, looking up at the imposing form of Jiraiya, the Toad Sage. Not that I knew anything of his exploits at that point, save that he treated me with kindness, a surprising rarity, and was a rather eccentric man. I suppose that all shinobi are quirky in their own manner, but in this age, I find this once common breed of ninja has slowly died out, for better or worse, I cannot say, while my memory has waxed and waned over the course of my life. When I place my pen to paper, which I suppose is quite the surprise to any of my younger readers, I cannot help but think of my first impression of this great man. In my many readings, Shimura Danzo's All the Evil of the World comes to mind. I have always assured myself of what greatness meant to accomplish great things. Invariably, one man shakes the world with his ambitions and rewrites history, such as was laid out in Shimura's crowning masterpiece. But to fit Jiraiya into the mold crafted by Shimura Danzo, veiled by shadow and honeyed words, is contrary to what makes Jiraiya, well, Jiraiya. He was no Hashirama, no figure like the Hokage, though the fifth was quite similar to him in many ways, and in his own way, he acknowledged it. While he was no doubt a mighty shinobi, his own character was quite peculiar. Looking back, he truly was a unique soul, filled with a sense of optimism that was of an earthy sort. Men of his quality were of short supply, but he always abashed himself when given praise. To Jiraiya, his future and past belonged to no one. He would remain Jiraiya, not pockmarked by allegiances, except those his heart gave, and his heart was made of iron. He was a great hulk of a man, with a rippling musculature that begged disbelief, although he always maintained that the ladies loved it. A spiky mane of hair sprouted from his head, held back by a horned headband with the kanji for oil engraved into it. "Kid, I told you," he repeated, to deaf ears. Looking back, I always had this effect on people, didn't I? I'm not getting you any more ramen. But you said... You can forget it. Jiraiya scratched his back, craning his neck up to the sun. You're only 6, and a brat like you needs a real meal. Out of curiosity, I acquiesced to his suggestion. He led us on for some distance, and I took the time to marvel at Konohagakure's reconstruction. The plots of lands around us were filled with bustling workers, and all around I could see shinobi jumping to and fro, faces burdened with spectacular purpose. "Everything's different," I exclaimed, stating the obvious. "Of course it is," he sighed at the end, and the child I was couldn't help but wonder why he was so sad. Of course, to me, the villain, Madara Uchiha, had been crushed, and those I loved were safe. It was only later that I learned of Nagato, and his connection to myself. He smiled wistfully, and the smile itself was almost fatherly. Konoha isn't gonna get knocked over so easily, you can count on that. I giggled there. "We should make everything out of bricks then!" His face was one of befuddlement, but he quickly covered it up. He nodded instead, remaining quiet. As we continued down the lane, I began to notice something. All the people we called looked at him with awe in their eyes, like he was some form of distant star. A silver star or sapphire one, I couldn't say, but watching him made me feel a little more of who I wished to be, and once we spoke some more, quite a bit more confident, he and I were not so different. The restaurant itself was nothing special, if you could at that. It was a single cart rolled in a grass field. The man behind it had knotty skin and a permanent scowl affixed to his hiss. A mop of grayish-black hair dotted his scalp, although to my eyes it was more of a wig. "The usual?" His voice was quite jarring. It was almost like milk running across silk strings, a gentle lullaby. At once my eyes snapped up to his face, in surprise. "Make it 2, Jiraiya answered, chuckling at my face. It was a deep rumbling purr, and at once I had the opinion that he was a cat. A large old graying cat. The vendor nodded his head. Before his eyes flickered to me, I leaned back, burying myself into Jiraiya's form, or his leg, for at this date I still had some fear of others. As our eyes met, I found myself staring at 2 kind suns. The man laughed, and I suddenly felt all the more squeamish. He must have noticed my sudden embarrassment, and inclined his chin down to peer at me more closely. Now, and did his voice sing? "You're the brother of Namikaze, aren't you?" I stared up at him, too distracted to notice Jiraiya's sudden silence. "Kato?" I asked. His expression was one of pure joy, as some divine commandment had been revealed to him. Looking back, there was some reluctant sorrow wiped over his bones, but his face was far too gaunt and my vision too small to witness it. "To think the 4th would have done it," he muttered, slicing vegetables while pushing a ladle into a pot of bubbling broth. "It makes sense." Jiraiya watched, and the vendor looked up at him. He grinned, yellow teeth flashing as he laughed. I myself believed that his laugh matched neither his face nor voice. It was neither exceedingly beautiful nor hideous, but it was in all means average. All at once, I thought of a nightingale. "After your damned book, was it?" "Shut it, Noboru. You know him, Oji-san," I said, to Noboru's guffaws of approval and Jiraiya's anguish. Kid, he said, pinching his brow, you keep at this and everyone will know by sundown.
Know what? I asks, rather innocently.
Nobaru butted in, looking up from his pot. It's simple. You look like Namikaze. You're the kid the demon was sealed into. His eyes were sad, like he was saying farewell, but knew we would meet again. It was only when I was older that I learned that the pithy of sorrow, dredged in his black eyes, was regret. Jiraiya didn't bother correcting Nobaru, only looking to the side. Jiraiya! He looked at me then, and I felt a terrible rush overtake me. I just felt empty, staring up at the rock that loomed in the distance, watching. My fist shook. I had accepted being the vessel, accepted kindly, but this, it was a cold fury. Logic dictated that I accept the decision, simply look to the spiky, unmovable visage of the Yondaime, not Minato Namikaze. Father and teacher, his eyes were cold when I stared at them, begging, screaming that it wasn't true. I didn't want to be the Yondaime's son. I wanted to be Naruto Uzumaki, the orphan who proved the world wrong. I never wanted to be Naruto Namikaze, shoehorned into a legacy 2 sizes too large. The more childish part of my brain was excited, shocked. What boy does not want a fabulous father? A father who would pick me from school, who I could speak off. That's my old man. You know, he really sucks at shogi. But it was then that I realized that was all I wanted. Hey kid. I looked up, not really meeting Jiraiya's eyes. Here. He gave, or pushed, a bowl of steaming broth into my hands, handing me a set of chopsticks. The sea of stew parted as I half-heartedly poked around, taking note of the noodles and chunks of meat cruising across the soup. They seemed to be at peace, almost, until I realized they were dead. It's noodle soup, Jiraiya offered, keeping a grinning face. I think you'll like it. Did Dick T like ramen too? It was a spiteful move, and judging from the wince on Jiraiya's face, it had struck home. But there was something more there, some far-off, distant longing and dream that rolled across his eyes and into his tensed hands. Every time he looked at me, that same hope returned, and the creases marking his face softened ever so slightly. No, he began, feeling quite a bit sad, voice resolute. No, he said again, this time to himself, before looking back at me. That would have been your mother. Then, a smile. Mother? Kushina Uzumaki, he clarified. You're a lot like her, and Minato too. How did you know them? I was Minato's sensei. I did not know what else to say. My mind was oddly still. He loved you. I pushed some more noodles into my mouth, chewing quietly. He wanted to be there for you. Kushina too, Kami. They loved you, Naruto. You have to believe me. They loved you more than anything. I wondered who he was consoling, himself or me. He chose the village. I didn't have to look to my side to see Jiraiya's heartbroken expression or the sudden outtake of breath. Because that's what being Hokage is, I said quietly. Sacrificing the few for the many, right? He did not respond, his own noodles being awfully tantalizing. Suddenly, his hand was on my shoulder, and he squeezed lightly, as a father does to a son. I never knew what thoughts flew through Jiraiya's head at that moment, but somehow I could see some glimmer of understanding in his eyes. The Toad Sage dipped his head, looking remorseful and very old. It was the sort of expression that comes from experience, and I suddenly wondered how many times he had fallen into despair. You're right. I blinked in surprise. The Hokage, they like to talk about peace, about family and friendship all the time, but they're fickle, changing like the wind, he said, and I was suddenly reminded of the shopkeepers, of the landlords in their large gated homes. Those who want to leave are marked to be captured. What does that sound like, Naruto? The answer was at the tip of my tongue, although I didn't want to say it. It left a bitter taste. Kakashi is different. I protested weakly. He was always reliable, the sort of guy to fade into the background until you needed him the most. Yet, he was still so sharply wrapped in the threads of shadow that he could never fully understand me, and I him. There always was a distance between us. I was far closer to Jin than him, and I think he came to acknowledge it. He once told me that his biggest regret was not helping me earlier. In fact, I had mistook Kakashi for Jin at our first meeting. Different? Jiraiya chuckled humorously, patting my back in faux comfort. Sure. All of a sudden I could envision it. It called to me a place beyond the distance of the stars, where I could see the world and the heavens aligned, for once a world at peace. It was impossible. I cannot say why I suddenly changed my mind, for that question is too personal, but I was simply tired. Thinking back on it, my previous ignorance was blissful. This moment had always been a watershed in my life. The river of my destiny had already shifted course, and I found myself questioning my resolve. Am I dreaming? I asked, head spinning, before I smiled brightly. I'm dreaming, I yelled, throwing my bowl into the air, watching the strands of thick wheat falling down slowly, the hot broth spilling over my black shirt. All of a sudden, I awoke. My hair felt a little wet, and my skin stung, but my mind was calm. Looking at Jiraiya hunched over me, a lump formed in my throat. His concern, his kindness, and I had spat on his offered hand. I'm sorry! I croaked. I'm sorry! Kid, Jiraiya yelled. Kid. He pulled me into his chest, massaging my back, and I was shocked by the gentleness of his touch and the calming pulse of his beat. I don't want to be his son. I don't want to be a Jinchuriki. I didn't want any of this. It was true. I would be the son of a prostitute rather than that of the fourth Hokage. I wanted my success to be my own. Jiraiya was free from such things, and I so desperately craved that freedom, so that when people looked at me, they called me Naruto instead of the son of the fourth. When they spat on my feet, I wanted it to be because of my own failures, not because of a stupid fox or the mistake of my ancestors. I know, Jiraiya murmured, laying me down on the grass. I didn't either. All I want is a home. To be respected. To be Hokage was my dream, my ambition. It was everything I wanted. The respect of the village. A place to call home. I could wear the hat, and I wouldn't be Uzumaki, Naruto, the demon brat, the pest. I could be Uzumaki Naruto, friend, customer, teacher. Was it so selfish to ask for what any child deserved? There were some who treated me kindly, the shop vendors near my home, and the shinobi who watched over me. I couldn't forget their smiles, the kindness they gave so easily, not when I was starved of it. You're too kind for your own good, Jiraiya said, and I saw Nobaru approaching. That's enough, the noodle vendor declared, stamping his foot into the grass. The boy doesn't care for our damn platitudes. Jiraiya, you have to let go. I stared at him in newfound awe. Jiraiya frowned, raising his own hand. Minato was like a son to me, and there's no way I'm gonna let his own son hate him. Nobaru closed his eyes, sighing again as he pinched his nose. Jiraiya, you and I fought together, didn't we? At least until this he waved to his ugly face, which I realized was the result of surgery. So, can't you understand? He isn't Minato Namikaze's son. Jiraiya flinched. I gave up on being a shinobi. I quit. I ran away. But at least I was honest with myself. So why don't you start? I wasn't. Jiraiya begun, only to be cut off by the slightly off-kilter noodle chef. Don't be like Sarutobi. He's still young, goddammit. Maybe in the future he'll understand, but now you just gotta leave it be. No wonder Tsunade left. Hey, Jiraiya bellowed, puffing out his chest before deflating, thanks. Just paying you back. Nobaru winked before going back up the field to his cart. He was an orphan, just like Jiraiya, who was scarred and crippled while facing off against Hanzo of the Rain. He was a true hero. Oji-san, why didn't you become Hokage? It was sudden, like the breaking of light, but I desperately wanted to know, as a stranded sailor seeks water. I wanted to know if my dream was idiotic, if it was the foolish hopes of a child in a world too large for him. I would always be 2 steps back now. Because I love the world out there, just as I love Konoha. Who am I to sit behind a cold desk and play with the lives of the young to fulfill the pathetic wishes of some old men? They're dumb. It was a childish reaction, but I was a child. I couldn't understand the intricacies of his words, but I understood their message with the naivety that only the young and innocent could hold. Jiraiya burst into loud, rambunctious laughter, slapping me on the back. Am I? He said, to which he began convulsing again, howling with barely restrained amusement. I shook my head in mild embarrassment. In the future, I would quickly realize that this was, in comparison, quite tame for Jiraiya. You haven't seen him after a few drinks enter his body and he turns on his charm if he even possessed any. I'm going to be the Hokage, I announced suddenly. I'm going to prove that you can be a father and Hokage. Jiraiya said, distracted by a butterfly fluttering in front of him. Then go for it, kiddo. Sham. They had won, that much was undeniable, but when Kaito looked at Naruto, he didn't feel that he had won anything. Sure, Madara and his ilk were all dead, but the blonde had never worried about them. That was Danzo's job. All he did was slit a few throats here, made sure Brat stayed loyal to the village, and took long naps. It wasn't like Naruto had grown on him. That was solely Jin's job, not his. Sometimes he felt that he was really good at faking it. It was entertaining, deflecting the Jinchuriki's questions, and watching the boy become all duck-faced around girls after a lesson from his godfather. Kaito was not Naruto's mother, and he felt Naruto was quite lucky, all things considered. He had been 20 when he had finally lost his virginity, so he bullshitted. He wasn't cut out to be a father figure, not in the slightest. When the brat finally confessed why he had been whining for so long, Kaito was confused. It's just now I won't even be able to prove myself. That made more sense. Kaito hummed non-committally while thinking about the problem. Logic was the simple answer. Don't worry about it, he said. What do you mean? Naruto asked, blue eyes brimming with some barely contained anger. Kaito quietly inclined his head up and closed his eyes. He sighed. There. The setup was all complete, just like those light novels he had read. Now all he had to do was deliver the speech. It was just another mission. So what if you're the son of the fourth Hokage, he said. He would know. He wasn't technically the man's son. More like a clone, based on what he had stolen from Danzo's files, but the rumors of his slaughter of Iowa and their Jinchuriki had forced his hand. That legacy of his, it doesn't have to be yours, you make your own choices. Why was Naruto complaining again? If anything, he should be thankful. Now he wouldn't get harassed endlessly. It also saved Kaito from having to get groceries so often. But, stop whining, Kaito pinched his nose. He was pretty sure he and Shiro were better than this. They had been clones, but they'd sucked it up, hadn't they? What? Naruto screeched, and Kaito once again sighed. He had found himself doing that a lot recently. If anything, your reaction only justifies whatever bullshit you're peddling. Kaito snorted. What the hell was he even saying? All you care about is that your father was the Yondaime, not that he was a man between a rock and hard place. Would you want to give your burden to anyone else? No. Besides, your mother was the jailer, before. What? Kaito should look into earplugs. Really, with Konoha's steady rebuilding, he was sure he could get them at a premium. Yeah, you were the only one who could hold a Kyuubi. So, you don't owe him anything. Stop worrying about him. If you don't like the way the villagers treat you, just dye your hair or use some concealer on those whiskers instead of whining. Naruto blinked. Kaito remained unamused. Why didn't I think of that? Kaito wanted to say it was because Naruto wasn't the sharpest tool in the box, but refrained. Okay, now go get groceries. What? Groceries. It also distracted the boy from his previous breakdown. Hey, I just got back from talking to Jiraiya and eating lunch. Naruto rubbed his stomach. I can't even walk. Then why do you have noodles in your hair? Naruto stuttered. The floor looked awfully inviting all of a sudden. Just go take a shower. Kaito sighed. Jiraiya probably got into an argument about Naruto when revealing the whole thing. Okay, Naruto skulked off then, and Kaito relaxed back on the couch. Finally, a moment of peace. His hands reached for the red-bound book on the counter, before he was rudely interrupted by a puff of smoke. Hey, Kaito stared blankly at the toad sage. Wasn't Jiraiya supposed to head off to Ami now or something? Is something wrong, Lord Jiraiya? No. Jiraiya waved his hand dismissively. I was just following the kid, you know? Making sure he didn't do something stupid. I'm heading to Aman, looked awfully old, with Nagato and Konan. Uh-huh. Kaito flipped open the cover of his book and heard Jiraiya clear his throat. You know, kid, we've never really talked. Yes. Kaito was running out of options fast. I've been busy in Abiu and stuff, and you've been, well, spying. Hey, Jiraiya suddenly sat down next to Kaito. I'm sorry. For what? Sadness flashed over Jiraiya's face. Orochimaru, he croaked. That wasn't your fault. I should have known, should have spotted it. Minato was my student, and you... His voice cracks, fading off as he looks helplessly at his hands. Lord Danzo took care of me. How can you say that? Jiraiya asked, voice trailing off. It's so... Kaito tilts his head, smiling. It's an annoying smile. He closes his eyes, too. I turned out all right. Jiraiya blinks slowly, looking like he's made some terrifying realization. You... What did Kaito do now? You act just like Minato's brat? Kakashi? You mean Lord Fifth? Kaito asked. Then it is an honor for you to compare myself to him. Oh, he should probably say thanks, right? Thank you, he added, feeling quite satisfied. Well, I should get going, Jiraiya said rather awkwardly. You're good. Real good. Minato would have been proud of you. I am happy to continue his legacy. Yeah, why did he look so uncomfortable? Take care of Naruto, Kaito. He sees you as his brother now, and he'll need one. I shall ensure that the Kyuubi is not freed. Jiraiya looked like he was going to punch him. Just look after him. And Konoha. Kaito felt like he should offer something, so he stood up and extended his hand. You can call me Kaito. Kite-eyed. Jiraiya felt the word on his lips. It felt slightly odd. Not too much, though. Huh. It fits you, doesn't it? What do you mean? Always need someone else to blow in your sails. I see. Jiraiya slapped Kaito on the back, chuckling lightly. God, Kaito felt tired. A look of trepidation fell over Jiraiya's face. A light shadow of doubt. Alright then, I'll be off, and with a quick salute, he was gone. Kaito chuckled quietly. Oh, he's gone. You just missed him. Kaito wasn't being petty or anything, he was just speaking the truth. Naruto looked at the floor. His hair was still a little wet. Hey, Kaito spoke up, catching Naruto's attention. Remember that question you asked me? Huh, yeah. Let me tell you something. You don't get stronger by copying what others do. You get stronger by following your own path. That's how champions are made. Kaito ruffled Naruto's hair before yawning. I think I need a goddamn nap. Hope you're gonna turn into father like that. The voice broke him out of his thoughts, and Naruto's eyes flickered to Sasuke's face. All that thinking and scowling is making your baby face melt. Naruto faux pouted, turning his back to Sasuke. The two were sitting in Sasuke's room after Mikoto Oba-san had kindly let him in. She always liked to dote on him, and Naruto knew that it made Sasuke jealous. It's nothing, Naruto said. Sasuke stared at him, unamused, before a smirk crept up his face. Let me guess, the ramen stand closed? Naruto didn't respond. Scared of flunking? Nope, Naruto grinned easily at that. He wasn't the dead last anymore. Then what is it? The blonde drowned slowly, looking at his hands. It's complicated? Sasuke asked. Naruto nodded. Related to the Hokage again? Yeah, Naruto said. He told me something. You don't have to tell me, Sasuke said, and Naruto glanced at his face. You want to know, bastard? I don't. Sasuke's face flushed for a second before he regained his composure. It's just irritating. When you're all sulky, you care. Naruto threw his hands into the air. Just tell him. The Yondaime Hokage was my dad. Naruto slowly looked at Sasuke, searching his face for shock, for anger, for something, but instead Sasuke just looked at him blankly. What? He snapped. Sasuke blinked. You didn't know? I mean, I thought about it. Naruto scratched his head, but I never really thought about it. It was kind of obvious when the Kato Namikaze showed up at your house. Naruto was unamused. Yeah, but he never told me. Is that why you came here? Yeah. Because you got mad over this? Sasuke asked incredulously, shaking his head. I guess he had his orders. Then why did he get to keep that name? Sasuke shrugged. You should ask him. I understand. Sasuke said suddenly. You think it's because he's better than you? Yeah, huh? Sasuke's onyx eyes were soft as he placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, offering a comforting pat. I was jealous of Itachi, you know? He whispered, like sharing a secret. The Hokage's right hand, the genius of the Uchiha. I was mad at him all the time because of it. Naruto's eyes widened. Sasuke continued, it never goes away, really, until I realized that moping wasn't going to change anything. It was Hinata, actually, who told me that. Naruto gaped. Hinata, I wrote to her, angry and mad. She sent me a reply. Well, he smiled wryly. I still have it. That sounds like her. Apparently she has to deal with the Kazekage's daughter, who had a similar problem. Was she cute? Naruto suddenly asked, elbowing Sasuke, who blushed. No way. Sasuke. I don't know what you're talking about. Sasuke mumbled. You haven't even met the girl and you have a crush? Hey, Sasuke snapped, before mellowing out. It would be a strong alliance between the leaf and sand, you know? I can't believe Sakura-chan had a crush on you, you monster. She likes the guy who shows his stomach now. Sasuke commented. Naruto shivered at that. That guy, huh? Sasuke smirked. Scared of competition, eh, Naruto? Nah, Naruto replied. I'd win. Sasuke stared at him and burst into laughter. Hey, I'll let you know that Jujutsu Rising is a fine piece of work. I really wonder who wrote it. A white-haired guy who covers his eyes. The strongest sorcerer, don't you think? No way the Hokage wrote it, Naruto said. Old man Kakashi has zero artistic talent or taste. He could have hired someone. Sasuke retorted, propaganda. Let's change the topic. Sasuke smirked. Feeling better, idiot. Naruto smiled. Yeah, I guess I was kinda stupid, wasn't I? The Hokage banned early graduation, so you only have this year. Elder. Is it dead? He asked, voice quiet. Danzo stared at him, lips set in a firm line. It is done. Setsu was sealed within a scroll, which was then destroyed. Good riddance, the Hokage said, letting hatred enter his voice. This whole mess can end here. I do hope so, Kakashi. The two sit in hushed silence, enveloped by the darkness of the Hokage's office. The space is humble, nothing more than a tent with a few makeshift chairs and a worn rug covering the floor. But it serves its purpose. As the first rays of sunlight peek through the flap, casting a warm glow on the sparse furnishings, Danzo releases a quiet sigh, his fingers gently rubbing at his temples. Age catching up to you now. Kakashi's normally sharp and focused gaze is now heavy-lidded and distant. His posture slumped as if the weight of the world is bearing down on him. There are dark circles under his eyes, evidence of a sleepless night and a troubled mind. Kakashi's shadowed eyes look tired and droop slightly in exhaustion, the bags under them making him look years older than he actually is. His usual bright and mischievous expression is gone, replaced with a solemn and fatigued one. His fingers run through his wild shock of silver hair, pushing it back from his forehead. The dim light of the tent office casts shadows across his face, highlighting the lines of exhaustion etching themselves deeper into his features. The elder's deep, rumbling chuckle filled the room, his eyes crinkling at the corners with mirth. Ah yes, retirement in the countryside sounds quite appealing, he said, leaning back in his chair as if already imagining himself there. A peaceful little cottage nestled among rolling hills and fields of wild flowers. Far away from the hustle and bustle of Konoha, the thought brought a smile to his weathered face as he sipped his tea. Kakashi's smile was a small, secret thing. Inwardly, he couldn't help but marvel at the transformation he saw in Danzo. The elder's face was lit up as if by an inner flame, giving him the appearance of a man who had gained a second chance at life. So you'll pass on everything to Jin then? Kakashi asked. Yes. I've been training him to be your ANBU commander, and I believe the time to fully pass on the reins to the next generation has come, said Danzo. I feel content now, for lack of a better word. Me too, Kakashi echoed. Obito, Minato-sensei, everything. You can move on now, Kakashi. Kakashi let out a small laugh and rubbed the back of his head, feeling a bit embarrassed as he looked at Danzo's gentle smile. It seemed like an unlikely expression for someone with such a bloody past, but oddly enough, it suited him perfectly. Danzo blinked in surprise. Danzo-sensei, you really are just like the Sandai man, aren't you? Now, Kakashi cut him off. Thank you. What? Thank you for helping Jin, for helping Shuro, for helping Kaito, for helping me. Beneath his mask, Kakashi's lips quivered slightly as he smiled, his eye crinkling in happiness. It shone with a mixture of emotions, reflecting the light in the room. Kakashi's slender frame trembled slightly, a rare sign of emotion peeking through his usually composed demeanor. His mask could not hide the twitching corners of his lips, as he gave a small smile, and his one visible eye sparkled with a glint of gratitude. Confusion blossomed across Danzo's face as he looked at Kakashi with a mixture of surprise and warmth. His eyes softened, wrinkles deepening in their corners as he took in the genuine gratitude emanating from his former student. You don't have to thank me, Kakashi, Danzo replied softly, his voice tinged with a tenderness rarely heard. You've always been an exceptional shinobi, and it was an honor to have played a small part in your journey. Kakashi's smile widened, breaking through the weariness etched on his face. I just want to say thanks. Weren't you the one who told me to speak my mind? Danzo nodded, a bittersweet expression crossing his features. I understand, he murmured, memories of past mistakes and missteps flashing through his mind. There were many things he could have done differently, regrets he held. People who he couldn't save, lies that he had made. Kakashi let out a hearty laugh, his silver hair catching the sunlight streaming through the open window. Come on now, sensei. You know I have important duties to attend to, he playfully chided his mentor. The man pouted in mock disappointment, but the twinkle in his eye betrayed his true feelings. The future was full of promise and potential, and Kakashi could feel it radiating from every corner of the village. As he looked out at the crowded streets below, he couldn't help but remember the promise he had made to Obito all those years ago. I'll be the Hokage you wish to be. Future. The fifth Hokage was unassuming, plain even. He was not of exotic physical build, save his gray hair and the eye of his former comrade. When he walked down the roads and lanes, crossing the main street, and ordered a bowl of ramen, just like his sensei, the old lady said, he would speak to each and every citizen with questions. Transparency, he said, eyes focused and tongue quiet. Understanding is necessary for our village to move forward. Only a week into office, and Konoha was leveled, brought to her knees by terrorists. The Hokage took to the battlefield, lightning in his palm and another world in his gaping socket. He wielded the lifeblood of the planet, unshaken and filled with unbreakable will. He moved like a panther, unseen within the shadows, dancing among the clouds, killing the third Sochikage with a single move. But his second foe was the wielder of the Rinnegan, inheritor of the Sage of Six Paths might. Yet the Hokage did not even hesitate, feet marching to his own drum as he threw himself into another battle. His name was Hatake Kakashi, 5th Hokage of Konohagakure. It was hard to match words to how it made him feel. How could he ever deny this was not where he ever imagined himself to be? He had always imagined himself in front of this desk, with Minato-sensei, with Rin and Obito watching quietly from the shadows. But oddly enough, he was content with the peace he had earned in body and soul. He had to smile at that. Now the robes of the Hokage, the white haori, the conical hat, felt like they belonged. He didn't feel like an imposter anymore, and though he would never tell his therapist, he felt that he was finally worth something. Picturing it now, he nearly shuddered at the very thought of his past self. The difference was night and day. Looking around the room now, a soft smile tugged at the corners of his lips. Tomorrow is graduation day, Naruto's to be more precise. His eyes flickered to the portrait of the Sundame and Yondame hovering over them. He had already memorized their faces a long time ago. Minato-sensei, Sarutobi-sama, you be proud. That I'm sure of. Lord Hokage Kakashi's eye flicked back to the telephone on his desk. It was a black panel forged from metal, covered with buttons and speakers that allowed him to instantly communicate with the various divisions of Konoha's administration. And that voice would be his secretary. His finger pushed down on the send button, and Kakashi let the static fizzle for a few seconds. Lord Hokage, the female voice buzzed once more, only for Kakashi to chuckle quietly. Mama, I was just a little busy, he hummed nonchalantly. What is it? She didn't hesitate before responding, clearly a root agent, retired or active. Kakashi wasn't sure. He had been trying to guess for the past 6 years and hadn't received a straight answer. Jin had offered to check, but Kakashi had turned him down. It wouldn't be as fun then. You have a meeting with Iruka-san to review the Genin teams, followed by a meeting with the Jonin. Understood. Tell Iruka that he's free to enter whenever he arrives, Kakashi replied, leaning back in his chair. Understood, sir. With those words, the intercom was cut out. Leaving Kakashi to his own devices, he could do paperwork. There were some more S-rank meetings and building permits to be reviewed, but that was boring. Foreign correspondence was always more fun. He turned to his right desk, one of 3, all forming a U-shape around him. It held all his paperwork, documents, and filing cabinets, while the one to his left contained all his electronic equipment. A computer was a godsend for paperwork. Kakashi picked up the letter he had in mind, gently folding the white envelope over so the seal faced him. A raindrop placed in the center of concentric circles met his gaze, and the Hokage quickly ripped it open, carefully folding open the paper within and inspecting it. It was handwritten, written in smooth and straight kanji, but the writer liked to add a little flourish to the ends, making the curves a little smoother, the lines straighter. To the 5th Hokage, Military Governor of Konohagakure, I am indeed interested in your proposal to send my shinobi to your Chonin exams and will accept to your invitation regarding my presence during the final stage. I graciously accept. I would also request an extension to the loans you have transferred at least till 2 months after the Chonin exams. Ameng is steadily opening up its borders, and while the Land of Fire and Wind have proven to be valuable markets, we require time to fully complete the transition. In turn, I am willing to provide water to the Land of Wind at a premium and raw iron to the Land of Fire. Sincerely, Miyato Uzumaki, Daimyo of the Land of Rain. Well, wasn't that interesting? Kakashi reached for a pen and spread a sheet of loose leaf across his desk, pausing slightly, puttering over a response before giving up. The council would probably need to hear of this, especially in regards to a potential loan pause. Kakashi sighed before smiling cheerfully. If the Sandaime were here, he would groan and push it to the side before bringing it up in a council meeting. But for Kakashi, that meant less work for him and more for his dear council. He was interrupted by the sound of the door creaking open. Looking up, his eyes met those of Aruka Umino, who stood nervously in the entranceway. "Well, come in," Kakashi greeted easily, folding his hands together as he leaned on the polished wood of his desk. "Aruka, I presume?" Aruka bowed hastily. "Yes, Lord Hokage." He moved forward, quietly sitting down in the seat in front of the Hokages, before reaching for the folder in the crook of his arm. "These are the team combinations I made. Taking your recommendations in account." Kakashi nodded. "Well, let's hear them," he said, looking expectantly at Iruka, who flipped open the folder and withdrew the first paper. Kakashi glanced at it briefly, taking note of the faces. "Well," Iruka began, "the first is Team 7. He looked up at the Hokage, who raised an eyebrow in amusement. Iruka coughed and moved on, which is shaping up to be a heavy assault team consisting of Naruto Uzumaki, Shikamaru Nara, and Sakura Haruno, under Itachi Uchiha." Kakashi finished, glancing back to the portrait of the Yondaime. Iruka followed his gaze, and hesitated for a second before speaking up. "Pardon me for asking, but why not teach them yourself? You were his student, right?" Iruka asked. Kakashi simply sighed. "That's a question I ask myself every day." He had always seen that as his position for Naruto, before Danzo and before everything. But that was when he was still trapped in his own oyster, unable to see beyond the walls that he had built with his own two hands. "But sometimes the best choice is to not make one," Kakashi said, smiling brightly at Iruka. Iruka pursed his lips. "What do you mean by that, Lord Hokage?" He closed his eyes, chuckling at the question. His head slouched against his arm, and for a second Kakashi thought it over, really just thought about it. Maybe it was his regret or something else far beyond the horizon. But when Iruka met the coal-black gaze of the fifth Hokage, he shuddered. Kakashi smiled cryptically. "Who said I wasn't teaching a team?" Iruka blinked. That was a surprise. "Who then?" "Teammate," Kakashi replied nonchalantly. "Teammate?" Iruka echoed, scratching his head. "Isn't that guy's team?" "No." "I see. Really though, I plan on picking the most promising talent after the Chunin exams," Kakashi explained, "and I'd be a horrible teacher, I fear." Iruka didn't choose to respond to. Iruka nodded, before retorting quite calmly, "I think we got distracted, Lord Hokage." "Oh, I suppose you're right," but Hokage nodded, motioning for him to continue. "Shikamaru is very talented at strategy, and being on a team with Naruto and Sakura would push him to work harder." Iruka explained, "And Sakura is already good friends with Naruto." Kakashi nodded. "Reminds me of my own Jinin team." Kakashi's hands gently traced the edges of a faded picture, the corners worn and frayed from years of handling. The picture in the photo, a boy with spiky blonde hair and a mischievous grin stands tall, donning a headband with black goggles resting on his forehead. His bright blue eyes seem to shine with determination, and unbridled hands gently touch the framed picture, a grin spreading across his face as he gazes at the spiky blonde hair and determined blue eyes of the boy in the photo. He quickly realizes Iruka is watching and turns away, rubbing the back of his head in embarrassment. Iruka smiled warmly. "Naruto reminded me of myself as well. When I was a kid, that is. He's mellowed out now, but when he was a kid, he was one Halion." "Wah, don't tell me you took a liking to him, Iruka," Kakashi pried, "trying to steal my position so quickly." "No, of course not," Iruka sputtered, face turning beet red. "I just care for my students." "Sure. I'm serious." "Of course," Kakashi replied, lifting up the folder. "I'll look over the rest of the teams." "Thank you," Iruka said, rising slowly before commenting. "You just wanted to hear me praise Naruto, didn't you?" "I can neither confirm or deny any operation without the daimyo's approval." Iruka finished, unimpressed. Kakashi smirked. "I'll see you at graduation tomorrow." Iruka nodded, pinching the bridge of his nose. The Hokage had always been flippant and non-committal, since the first day Iruka had met him. The two had become friends now, at least, since Iruka became head instructor at the academy and had a brief stint on the Shinobi Council, on a recommendation from one of the Sandami's teammates. Our journey's end. Jin married Anko on the 5th of May. Why that date was chosen, Kakashi didn't know. All he knew was that half of Kona must have been invited. Thank God that the Kazekage had agreed to provide security for the entire village during the event. Speaking of the Kazekage, Kakashi was looking right at him. The two were standing near the wine bar, and the auburn-haired man was helping himself to the selection of spirits. We do have a fine collection of Suna's best liquor, he commented, grinning under his mask. You would do well to remember that. Hokage? The man retorted, pouring a glass of Almagic. Would you care for some? Why not? A nod was his response, and a glass filled with an amber liquid was pushed into his hands. Kakashi quickly patted his black and red suit, adjusting his handkerchief before taking the wine. Smells heavenly. Taking a sip, Kakashi's hopes were well met. It does. The Kazekage responded, and Kakashi smiled. Why did you come? He asked. It wasn't something he had ever expected from the nationalistic and gruff man, who rarely ever took a break from his duties. The Kazeka didn't respond at first, instead swirling his drink. My son wanted to come after your boy invited him. Kakashi nodded quietly. It must have been Minato-sensei's genes that led to that. Gaara, right? His performance was amazing. Of course, the Kazekage looked just a little bit proud. It was expected. Ma, I was hoping Naruto would win. At this, the Kazekage's mouth opened. Before closing. That boy is the Yondaime Hokage's son. Is he not? I don't know what you're talking about. Kakashi pushed his hands into his pockets, whistling nonchalantly. The Kazeka snorted, clearly not believing Kakashi's absolutely devious truth. It was disappointing. Keep your secrets then, Kakashi chuckled. It was obvious that the Kazekage knew who Naruto's father was, considering his son was friends with the boy. Naruto was terrible at lying, especially to his friends. He shrugged. Enjoy the party, Lord Kazekage. The man smirked. I will, Lord Hokage. I hope the refreshments are to your taste. Kakashi rolled his eyes, sauntering off. He had seen Guy and Tenzo in the crowd, and wanted to talk to them. It had been a while since the three were able to hang out together, with their new teams and all. Gay, he called out, only to be pulled into an earth-shaking hug. His eyes could only see Gay's green shirt, it had to be green, and orange scarf, to which he laughed warmly. Kakashi. He could let him go, and Kakashi straightened out his shirt once more, and checked if he hadn't spilled any almajig. He hadn't, because he was the copy ninja. Lord Hokage, Tenzo said, smiling, and was that a hint of mischief in his stone-faced friend? I didn't think you had a sense of humor, Kakashi mused, to Tenzo's outraged gasp. Come on, Kakashi. Tenzo is filled with the roaring power of youth. Guy protested, elbowing Kakashi. Kakashi was pretty sure Tenzo's humor was faked, but he let it slide. We still have some time before the ceremony begins, so how are you guys? It has been a while since we last spoke, Tenzo chuckled before glancing at Kakashi. I saw you speaking to the Kazekage. He was bragging about his son. Tenzo raised an eyebrow at Kakashi's knowing smile. My, he's so stone-faced all the time. It's odd to see him speak so happily about something. Kakashi nodded at Yamato. Kinda like you, my adorable junior. You shouldn't speak of the Kazekage that way, Tenzo muttered, to which Guy laughed. It is a shame Itachi-kun is not here, is it not? Guy asked, looking Kakashi in the eye. He is, Kakashi clarified. Jin invited him, after all. They did work together in Anbu. What say, my rival? We hold a little competition while we wait? I do not think that is a good idea, Guy. Come on, Tesno, don't be such a spoil sport, Kakashi huffed, leaning back lazily. I'm sure there's something that doesn't need property damage. Need? Tenzo muttered, shaking his head to and fro. Kakashi did very much want to tease the Mokutan user a little more, but refrained. Guy laughed then, but there was a hint of solemnity in his tone. I didn't really mean it. Kakashi, for old times, huh? Guy nodded. It seems sometimes that everything has changed from the day we first met, when I wore an adorable scarf. What? Tenzo squeaked out, staring at them in mild shock. I was a child once, you know. Kakashi eye smiled at Tenzo, winking discreetly. Guy wore his ridiculous jumpsuit back then. Some things never change. But you have changed, my eternal rival. He's right, Tenzo said. You're not as cold as you used to be. Cold? Kakashi huffed in faux protest. I'll let you know that I am a very warm person. I give out plenty of hugs. Guy just shook his head. but Kakashi could see the smile still present on his lips. Guy was one of those guys who always smiled, and very rarely did he conceal it, except for now. I could say the same about you too, Gay. You're more mature, more of a realist. Guy blinked in surprise, to which Tenzo said, I guess it's Danzo. A wry smile crossed Guy's expression. He is coming, is he not? He could already be here, waiting to make an entrance. Tenzo offered. He's probably with Jin. Kakashi said, chuckling lightly, he is the closest thing to a father Jin has, after all. And was that sad? Kakashi would have wanted Sakumo to be here, to witness this moment. The man would have loved to see it. Tenzo laughed quietly. The three watched the rest of the party from their corner, quietly. A few came by, offering greetings of the Lord Hokage, which Kakashi grinned and nodded back. But for the most part, they stood in silence. He could see Naruto talking with the Pineapple Head. Shikamaru, the two were sneaking around the wine bar. Kato was staring at them, and Kakashi wondered if would intervene. Oh well, he could tell Yoshino later. She would love to hear it. Sasuke was talking to a blonde girl with the most ridiculous hairstyle. Wait a minute. His eyes narrowed. Hadn't Naruto mentioned a crush? He elbowed Gay and Tenzo, pointing the two out. To see such youth in Sasuke-kun, tears flowed out of Guy's eyes and Kakashi shook his head in disbelief. That's the Kezakagi's daughter, Tenzo deadpanned before his eyes slid back to the wine bar. The Kezakagi's watching. Kakashi laughed. So, is Fugaku-san. Isn't that funny? Gay pointed to the snack bar. There is young Gaara and Hinata-chan. The two were looking at the cakes, or Hinata was showing them to Gaara. Young love, Guy murmured, and Kakashi nearly threw out his hands to stop the man from collapsing from pure joy. That's Itachi-san, correct? Tenzo said, before moving forward. I should probably make sure a diplomatic incident doesn't happen. You do that, Kakashi said. It looks like the ceremony is starting. The lights had dimmed, and the stage opened up. From the shadows emerged Jin, swathed in the velvety embrace of a midnight black kimono, its silken folds whispering promises of intrigue and love. Over his shoulders, a white haori billowed like a celestial mist, elegantly secured by a robust jute belt. His attire was adorned with azure sakura flowers, the very vivid color of his eyes. His countenance bore the serene visage of refinement, an understated mask of tranquility concealing a barely restrained intensity that simmered beneath the surface. His eyes, smoldered with brilliance, yet an arctic coldness, lingered in their depths, akin to the distant and unforgiving nature of a glacier looming in the far reaches of an icy expanse. Beside him stood Danzo Sensei, draped in a long green robe that mirrored the vibrant shade of the Haishirama oak's verdant leaves. Yet beneath the canopy of green, Kakashi discerned a charcoal black undershirt. His lips etched into a thin line, parted with deliberate slowness and closed in rapid succession, revealing a mannerism that spoke volumes of a man navigating unfamiliar terrain. In this moment, Danzo appeared as a figure displaced from his usual realm, a stark contrast to his usual composed self. This unexpected vulnerability prompted a sly smile to grace Kakashi's features. From the right, Anko emerged, a vibrant kaleidoscope of contrasts. Her once rebellious, usually spiked purple hair cascaded down in unrestrained waves, flowing over her back like a river of amethyst silk. As she stood proudly, an air of regality enveloped her, reminiscent of a queen or princess lording over her subjects. Her lips, a bright, vivid red that contrasted so deeply with the pallor of her frost-like skin, smirked just a little at Jin's appearance. Kakashi would never forget the sharp contours of her expression, the way the black silk of her dedicant kimono hugged her body. Snakes lined the fabric, and Kakashi had to balk at that. Look at me, she seemed to say. I know who I am. And to her side was Shiro. Not Kato, not Kakashi, but Shiro. Inwardly, Kakashi felt slightly offended by that, but Anko didn't really have any parents now, or father figures, for that matter. He didn't mind. From the corner of his eye, he saw everyone's attention was on the couple, but the two of them could only see themselves. Love. It was in their eyes, their movements. If the world would end today, he was sure they would die with a smile on their faces. And Kakashi. He was happy. His little brother, or clone, not that he ever believed that, had finally found love. Was he jealous? Just a little, but he was sure he could find someone. The Mizukagi was pretty hot, wasn't she? He could retire, throw the hat to Itachi, and watch Naruto crumple in sadness and retire somewhere like Danzo had. A nice cottage surrounded by his family with tea on the stove. He could see his future now, staring at Jean and Enko. They exchanged their vows until Enko grabbed Jean's face and snogged him right in the face. Jean looked shocked before he returned the kiss, sweeping Enko off her feet. Then Kato whistled, clapping his hands, and Naruto yelled, "Dance! Dance!" and the whole thing went to hell. The last thing Kakashi remembered was Danzo smirking at him near the punch bowl because, of course, he had to spike the goddamn fruit punch. Shiro was pretty good at the tango, and boy did he get the ladies excited. The highlight, though, was Sasuke asking Temari, the Kazekage's daughter, to dance, and Gaara and Hinata joining them for a duet. To the side, he could Sakura and Naruto dancing, real chase like it was a dance between friends. Quadruet, the alcohol was getting to his head. "Do you think your father would be proud?" The voice was scratchy and old. "I think he would," Kakashi mumbled, smiling tiredly. He was still the Hokage after all. Whoever he was talking to chuckled at that. Then I did a good job. Job, huh? Oh, this was Danzo. Look at them. Kato and Shiro dancing together. Danzo said, smirking evilly, "Did you know that when I learned how to dance formally, I had to practice with Hiruzen?" Kakashi nearly spit out his drink right then. "Don't pull my leg." "I'm not," Danzo said, laughing all the way. "I'm not. Thank you for the information, then. A pleasure." The two stood there, watching the party wound down, before Kakashi finally spoke up. Maybe it was the alcohol or the mood, but he had to know. Said, "Do you still have that time travel scroll I'd love to fool around in the past?" Kakashi asked like he had 10 years ago. Danzo stared at him, eyes wistful and so sad that Kakashi wondered what had happened, before he responded, quite forcibly, "No, I do not." "You miss them, don't you?" "You can never replace them." Kakashi fumbled with the wine glass before pushing one into Danzo's hand, then a toast. Two comrades, old and new. He smiled up at the old man who blinked in surprise before lifting up the glass. "To family," he said, clinking their glasses together with a knowing smile. "Old and new." "To family," Kakashi repeated, waving at Jin in the distance and nodding at Naruto. "To our family."